One of the dumbest parts about modern woke culture, even though it predates the term woke in the United States of America, and by the way, this can be pinned entirely on the left wing in the United States of America and in the Western world, is this idea that we need to watch out for the dreaded scourge of cultural appropriation, aka white people enjoying any aspect of any other culture because they're just looking for a reason to call white people racist. I'm sure you guys have seen that chart where if white people decide that they want to embrace another culture, then that's cultural appropriation, then that's racist, but simultaneously not experiencing other cultures is also you being exclusionary and also racist. Well, a perfect example of this is this story that I actually caught from EV Magazine, where an Australian woman dared to open in the city of New York a sushi restaurant in the style that sushi is served in Australia. We're going to get into this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the backlash and then the backlash to the backlash because there's a happy ending in this. But first, this video is sponsored, so let me toss it to the sponsor. Then we'll come back over here and talk about it on the other side. US debt spike could be setting us up for a long-term rally in gold. Since March of 2020, the federal government has added $8 trillion with a T to the national debt, and over that same period of time, gold is up 50%. To make matters worse, BRICS nations and oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have been meeting possibly to redirect away from the petrodollar to some other form of currency. It appears that Biden's Build Back Better plan of increased spending and increased regulation is never going to end, and that is likely to slow economic growth. But the thing is, you don't have to panic. You don't have to be left holding the bag. You can actually do something to secure your investments and protect yourself against the oncoming disaster. Call America's precious metal company, National Gold Group, at 866-826-2603 and learn how to secure your investments today. Make sure you mention my channel, Actual Justice Warrior, so that they know that I sent you, and get on the path of securing your future. There is always a risk with any investment, and past performance is not a guarantee of future results. So as this EV story reports, after opening up a sushi counter in New York City that served Australian style rolls, which by the way are rolls that are not cut into individual slices and meant to be ate whole by hand, the woman behind this was labeled Sushi Sheila and attacked viciously for daring to want to serve people sushi in the style that is common in her home country, and that home country not being an Asian country.
This new Aussie-style sushi shop in the West Village might be the best deal in town right now. They have 7 roll options like spicy tuna, spicy shrimp, salmon, miso eggplant, and signature ones like teriyaki chicken and cooked tuna, which they coined as very Australian. You get 3 rolls for $12. They're meant to not be cut up. You bite into them as is. And look how cute these soy sauces and fish are. Definitely go check it out.
Now, the hate campaign actually started on Twitter by somebody known as Eric Rivera Cooks, at Eric Rivera Cooks, who was very upset that this white woman, Dareth, made a video celebrating the opening of her restaurant and having a good time. As you could see, she's popping some champagne, and he is very angry on behalf of Japanese culture, a culture of which, of course, he descends from. No, I'm just kidding. This guy's Puerto Rican. A shame on my Puerto Rican heritage, by the way. And ironically, he's doing something equally as hilarious that we'll get into a little bit later, but he was extraordinarily mad on behalf of non-existent Japanese people that this woman dared open an Australian-style sushi restaurant in the city of New York, because people know for sure that all the Japanese-style sushi restaurants in the city of New York closed down immediately the second that hers opened. It was tragic. They basically were sent back into World War II style internment camps. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously that didn't happen. This guy just has way too much time on his hands, so he decided to make a hate campaign for no reason, based on the fact that he didn't like a white girl having a good time. And as you can see, he started this thread, which first says, "We don't have enough sushi," and then he replies to himself saying, "But it's Australian sushi. Give me a break, colonizer." Then he says, "Ha ha ha," and then of course the picture says it's hand rolls, no trust fun. And then he continues by saying, if you don't see why this is a problem, you're a part of a problem. Then he replies again saying, Elon Musk is here to tell you that it's okay to tell you all it's okay to make sushi anywhere you want, and you should lighten up. He also lost a ton of crypto, so please be kind, colonize wherever. So obviously you could tell from Eric's thread that he's incredibly unhappy with his own life. He's absolutely miserable in every possible way, and you can tell that because despite the fact that he apparently is a chef and apparently works at a restaurant and should theoretically be successful in North Carolina, he has all this time and energy to go after a white girl for smiling on the internet while preparing sushi in a style that it's served in Australia that is not common to be served in the United States of America, because how dare anybody who's not a Japanese serve any kind of Japanese food. Now I'm going to jump to the end point of the story of Eric Rivera, who is so miserable and so angry about somebody daring to cook Japanese food that he decided that he was going to complain and tell people to go 1-star this girl's poor restaurant 2 weeks after it opened, that of course he operates restaurants as a Puerto Rican that do Japanese food. So the guy is a hypocrite. There's actually a headline for him trying to open one of these Puerto Rican Japanese style restaurants in Seattle, and apparently he's opened 2 additional restaurants of this type in North Carolina where he's currently at. And again, it is advertised specifically as a place that will do Puerto Rican izaka, blending Puerto Rican with Japanese flavors. Now I do have a lot of happy news. Apparently this Twitter account called Dumb Bitch LLC found this story, ended up going after this person, and got her people to rally to give this place not only better reviews on Google Reviews, their score is now at 4.5 after being driven down to 1, but people are reportedly going to this place and enjoying it because they give you something like 3 rolls for $12, which is a good alternative if you want some quick, cheap sushi in comparison to the higher end alternatives, which, by the way, often are being operated by famous world-class Japanese chefs. The idea that one of these places in New York City that's a Michelin star sushi restaurant is being put in danger or put out of business by this store right here in New York City is crazy and ridiculous in every possible way. And honestly, that's the good thing about this story. It seems like we might finally be over the edge when it comes to these cultural appropriation stories where you have woke progressives with too much time on their hands going after white people for existing and enjoying anything and being happy in their lives because they, in fact, are miserable in their lives. And people are starting to recognize this, counteract this because they had enough. I remember somebody tried to open a Chinese food restaurant that was supposed to be like clean, healthy eating because people tend to feel a bit sluggish after they get Chinese takeout, and that particular person was raked over the coals for it. They were attacked in public, and the response, the fight back, was not nearly as strong as what I've seen in response to this story. So we are making some legitimate progress on telling these people to shut the hell up, that they're not interesting, that their lives are boring, and that their hatred for white people is embarrassing for them, and nobody's going to take them seriously on it. But to be clear, he did do some damage before this was detected by a larger account, and the poster of the original TikTok celebrating the opening of her own restaurant removed her post due to the harassment that this pathetic loser, Eric Rivera, ended up sending her way. And by the way, this idea that any particular culture owns exclusively the rights to manufacture and distribute any type of food is patently absurd and ridiculous. Sure, high-end Japanese sushi chefs are pretty well regarded as they do nothing else but sushi. It is something that they craft diligently, and that should be respected. And if you're in the mood for something that high end, you should seek them out. But I got news for you. In a lot of places in this country, when you go to a sushi restaurant, they're not speaking Japanese. They're being appropriated by Chinese people, and you oftentimes are not smart enough to tell the difference when you're there. Sometimes they're being run by Thai individuals. Sometimes they're being run by Filipino individuals. And all of those instances, you never noticed, you never cared about. Mr. Rivera never whined about, never complained about on Twitter because he can't tell the difference because he doesn't actually live amongst Asians in any real capacity. But more importantly than this, the only people who get angry about cultural appropriation are spoiled brat Americans. Or to broaden it out, spoiled brat Westerners. Because one of my favorite videos of all time on this particular issue, the cultural appropriation of food, actually came from BuzzFeed, and I played the clip for you guys earlier on this channel, but I actually think it might be the greatest video BuzzFeed has ever produced because they have a bunch of Chinese people try Panda Express, and the difference between the young Chinese people who are going out of their way to be offended, like emotionally hurt by the fact that they're being served Chinese takeout from a company like Panda Express.
Panda Express to me is like white people's Chinese food.
Versus the elderly people is quite telling.
If you actually know like real Chinese chow mein, you'd be like, this is like American China chow mein.
I think it's not that bad.
Wow, you never had authentic Chinese food
Yeah,
before.
this is like judged. He puts down at Panda Express, but he eats McDonald's all the time. Like, I don't understand.
So what I love about this is you have this guy right here who's going out of his way to be offended, to talk about cultural appropriation as he's being called out by his friend for eating McDonald's all the time. So he has no real problem with trash food. Let's get that straight. But when you go to the elderly people, you know, the people who actually speak Chinese, people who actually might have lived in China themselves, not people who speak perfect English and eat McDonald's, they're honored by the idea that there is a Chinese variant in the United States of America, and they expect it to be different because palates are going to be different, but they like the fact that Chinese culture has broadened out to such a point that there's at least the after effects of that culture in the United States of America.
I can't imagine anyone thinking that Panda is actually Chinese food.
同埋呢個幾好味，正適合中國人食嘅嘢咁。
適合中國人食。
For those of you who are listening via the podcast, this old guy right here says it's tasty Chinese food that Chinese people would accept.
就是美国式的中餐嘛，你不能要求它要像我们传统的中餐一样。
And this older woman who's also speaking Chinese tells this younger woman who's probably also crying because she's so offended that it's just an American-style Chinese food. You can't expect it to be the same as our traditional Chinese food. And honestly, even beyond the anti-white hatred expressed by Eric Rivera, the chef who has way too much time on his hands, that's what this is actually all about. It's a generational divide. For decades, people used to love America. They used to aspire to be American. They love the ideals of our country, and there's still plenty of people that feel that way. But now, hating America is in vogue, and it's in vogue specifically with young people. So you have all these jerk-offs going out of their way to harass people online, to preserve cultures, make sure they never blend and never mix with the dominant American culture, which is a combination of all the people who have come to this country over the last 200 plus years, because they've unironically tricked themselves into believing that segregation is the true progress of the world. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Eric should be ashamed of himself. I'm Puerto Rican. I take no responsibility for that total loser. He's completely Americanized. Don't forget, he was a Seattle chef. That's all Seattle, no Puerto Rico, and now he's in North Carolina, and he still cannot stop his nonsense and stop his bitching. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about another nonsensical tale of cultural appropriation. Till next time.